Your escape plan assumes roads stay open. What if they don't? 7 states flip from home to cage when power dies, and most people realize it far too late already. Subscribe for grounded thinking when systems stop working. And now let's move straight into the list. Number 7, Florida. Florida feels familiar, comfortable, and open, which is exactly why most people misunderstand the risk built into the state's shape and structure. On the surface, Florida looks like a place with endless roads, long coastlines, and room to move. Yet when pressure builds, movement stops being flexible and starts becoming directional in a way most people never notice until it's too late to adjust. Florida is a peninsula, and that single geographic fact quietly dictates every outcome once infrastructure becomes unreliable. Movement funnels north, not because people choose it, but because there is no meaningful alternative. East and west end in water, and south leads nowhere useful when everyone realizes at the same moment that staying put no longer feels viable. In normal conditions, highways already carry heavy traffic, especially between major population centers like Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Jacksonville. Those roads function because timing is staggered and fuel remains available. When timing collapses and everyone moves at once, those same roads turn into slow-moving lines that drain energy, supplies, and patience faster than most people expect. Food access in Florida relies heavily on constant delivery rather than storage. Grocery systems are designed for efficiency, not delay, which means shelves empty quickly when trucks stop arriving on schedule. Water access depends on pumping and treatment systems that require continuous power, and once pressure drops, availability becomes inconsistent across neighborhoods. Heat compounds every delay. Many buildings in Florida rely on cooling systems instead of passive airflow, which means indoor spaces become difficult to tolerate without electricity. That discomfort pushes people outside, which increases congestion, stress, and movement pressure even more. Florida does not become risky because people act irrationally. Florida becomes risky because millions of reasonable decisions collide inside a narrow geographic funnel that has no capacity for simultaneous movement. Number 6, Arizona. Arizona is often described as wide open, but openness does not equal flexibility when resources are thin and distances are long. Most of Arizona's population is concentrated in Phoenix and Tucson, cities that exist because of complex systems designed to move water, manage temperature, and deliver supplies across an environment that does not naturally support large populations. Water in Arizona does not appear where people live. It is transported through canals, lifted through pumping stations, and stored in reservoirs that depend on uninterrupted coordination. When that coordination breaks, access does not slowly taper off. It drops sharply, leaving large populations facing immediate scarcity. Movement sounds logical until distance becomes part of the equation. Leaving Phoenix or Tucson requires crossing long stretches of open terrain where services are sparse and shelter is limited. That journey works when fuel is available and timing is controlled. It stops working when fuel access becomes unreliable and roads fill with stalled vehicles. Food systems in Arizona depend on imports rather than local production at scale. Storage exists, but it is designed to bridge hours or days, not extended interruptions. When shelves are empty, replacement does not arrive quickly because supply lines stretch across hundreds of miles. Arizona does not overwhelm people with chaos. Arizona applies pressure slowly through exposure, scarcity, and distance, which removes the margin for error that many people assume will always exist. Number 5, Hawaii. Hawaii operates on a rhythm that works beautifully as long as transportation remains predictable. Food, fuel, and materials arrive daily, creating a sense of permanence that masks how thin the buffer really is. When that rhythm breaks, Hawaii becomes a closed system with limited ability to adjust quickly. Most of the food consumed across the islands arrives by ship from far away. Local agriculture exists, but it was never designed to feed the current population at scale. When deliveries slow, scarcity appears rapidly, not because production vanished, but because replacement stopped. Movement is not an option here. There is no road to another state and no nearby region to absorb pressure. Once transportation pauses, people are where they are, and adaptation becomes the only option available. Water access varies by location and elevation. While rainfall exists, treatment and distribution depend on power. Once that power becomes unreliable, access shifts unevenly, leaving some areas stable longer while others struggle quickly. Hawaii does not create urgency through panic. Hawaii creates urgency through isolation, because once external support pauses, the islands must rely entirely on what already exists. Number 4. Nevada. Nevada's largest population center exists in a place where nature offers little support without assistance. Las Vegas functions because power moves water, cooling makes buildings usable, and supply lines operate continuously across open terrain. When those systems pause, there is no fallback layer waiting underneath. Local food production is minimal, storage is thin, and replacement depends on long-distance transportation that cannot operate without fuel and coordination. Movement seems possible until timing becomes synchronized. When large numbers of people attempt to leave simultaneously, roads that once felt open become slow corridors surrounded by open land that offers little support. Heat magnifies delays. Vehicles that stop moving become uncomfortable quickly, and buildings without cooling lose their ability to provide relief during large parts of the year. Nevada does not fail suddenly. Nevada reveals how much modern life relies on invisible systems that people rarely notice until they stop working. Number 3. New Jersey. New Jersey thrives on density and integration. Services are close, supply chains are tight, and coordination keeps everything running smoothly. That same efficiency removes flexibility when systems slow or pause. Food arrives constantly, rather than being stored locally in large quantities. When deliveries pause, competition appears quickly because replacement timing is uncertain. Water systems depend on treatment and pressure. Taller buildings lose access first, which creates uneven availability that spreads frustration and movement pressure through dense neighborhoods. Leaving New Jersey is harder than it appears. Borders compress movement into a small number of major routes that already experience congestion under normal conditions. When stress increases, those routes lose capacity rapidly. New Jersey's challenge is not terrain or climate. New Jersey's challenge is scale, because too many people rely on systems with no slack built in. Number 2. California. California produces enormous amounts of food, but most of that production occurs far from where people live. Urban centers rely on constant transportation to bridge that gap, which works until coordination breaks. Water travels long distances through powered systems that require maintenance and energy. When those systems slow, availability becomes uneven across regions. Movement options exist, but geography funnels traffic into a limited number of corridors. Mountains, deserts, and coastlines narrow choice. And once timing collapses, distance becomes an obstacle rather than an escape. Environmental risks increase when coordination disappears. Response systems rely on power, communication, and access, which become unreliable during extended interruptions. California does not struggle because it lacks resources. California struggles because access to those resources depends entirely on systems that cannot tolerate long pauses. Number 1. Texas. Texas is often viewed as resilient because it produces energy and food, but production alone does not guarantee access when coordination breaks down. Texas operates on an independent power system, which works well during normal conditions, but limits outside support when recovery is needed. Water sources exist across the state, yet distribution depends on powered systems that move, treat, and pressurize supply. When power becomes unreliable, access varies dramatically between locations. Food production depends on fuel, timing, and logistics. Fields may still exist, but harvesting, processing, and distribution slow significantly without coordination. Heat adds urgency across much of the state, especially in large cities where buildings rely on cooling to remain usable for long periods of the year. Movement across state borders sounds possible until pressure rises. Neighboring regions protect resources, routes slow, and migration becomes contested rather than open. Texas does not face risk because it lacks capability. Texas faces risk because size, independence, and confidence remove the urgency to adapt early. These states share a common flaw that rarely appears in daily life. They are optimized for efficiency, not interruption. When everything works, they function exceptionally well. When systems pause, the margin disappears. Most people plan assuming time exists to adjust, time to decide, time to move, time to adapt. In these environments, time collapses faster than awareness spreads. The real question is not whether a place feels comfortable today. The real question is whether that place still works when systems stop compensating for geography. Leave a comment with what surprised you most, and if you want to keep going, the next video breaks down what actually increases stability when movement is no longer an option.